Look at human history. For millions of years, our ancestors chipped away at crude stone tools. Progress was agonizingly slow, almost stagnant. But then, suddenly, in what is basically a blink of a cosmic eye, absolutely everything changes. Around 6,000 years ago, in an arid land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a brilliant civilization simply pops into existence out of nowhere. They had advanced mathematics, complex legal systems, medicine, monumental architecture, and writing. How does a quantum leap like that happen? Historians call it the Cradle of Civilization. But if you dig into what they actually wrote down, the story shifts from dry historical facts into something that sounds exactly like science fiction. Let's talk about their astronomy. These ancient people left behind thousands of cylinder seals and clay tablets. When you roll these seals over wet clay, they press out highly detailed pictures. And one of those pictures, currently sitting in a museum, depicts something strictly impossible. It shows a solar system. The sun is in the center, and planets are orbiting around it. The fact that they knew the sun was the center is impressive enough, since it took humanity millennia to rediscover that. But that is not the craziest part. This carving accurately depicts all the planets we know today, including Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Uranus was only discovered with telescopes in 1781, Neptune in 1846. So how did Bronze Age humans know they were out there? Not only that, but the relative scale of these planets matches reality with disturbing accuracy. Yet, there is one glaring detail that baffles modern astronomers looking at this artifact. In this clay tablet solar system, there is one extra planet. This extra body is drawn between Mars and Jupiter, but the texts describe it as having a massive, highly elliptical orbit, much like a comet. It doesn't circle the Sun in a single year. It takes an astonishing 3,600 Earth years for this planet to complete just one orbit. In astrophysics, we'd call this a rogue planet or a crossing orbit body. For the vast majority of its journey, it drifts in the deep, freezing dark of outer space, way out past Pluto. But every 3.5 millennia, it slingshots back into the inner solar system. The ancient texts didn't just record the math of this orbit, they named this planet. And more importantly, they explicitly claimed that this celestial body was not a dead, barren rock. It was inhabited, and those inhabitants came to Earth. Why would an advanced civilization leave their homeworld to come to Earth? The answer in the ancient texts sounds exactly like a modern ecological crisis. Their planet's atmosphere was failing. To shield it, they needed to suspend particulate matter in their stratosphere. And the only material that would work was gold. Earth was rich in gold. So, according to these records, hundreds of thousands of years ago, these visitors splashed down on our planet. They established settlements in Mesopotamia and massive mining operations in southern Africa. Archaeological evidence of prehistoric gold mining actually exists there, by the way. But mining is brutal work. After thousands of years of backbreaking labor deep underground, the workforce of these visitors mutinied. They went on strike. Their leadership faced a catastrophic problem. They needed the gold, but nobody wanted to dig it out of the dirt anymore. Remember the beginning of this video, when I talked about the agonizingly slow pace of human evolution, and then the sudden explosion. The visitors' answer to their labor strike provides the most chilling explanation for human evolution ever written down. They didn't build machines. They looked at a primitive hominid already roaming the earth, perhaps Homo erectus, and decided to upgrade it. By taking their own DNA and splicing it with the Earth hominids' DNA, they performed a miracle of genetic engineering. The product of this genetic splicing was a creature smart enough to understand commands, dexterous enough to hold tools, and docile enough to work the mines. It was our ancestor. We were created, quite literally, to be a bioengineered labor force. As this new labor force multiplied, they were brought out of the mines to build cities, farm the land, and serve their gods. But as human populations exploded, we became noisy, uncontrollable, and some of the visitors began to view us as a biological nuisance, a mistake. Then, a cosmic event aligned. The home planet of these visitors, on its 3,600-year orbit, was swinging back into the inner solar system. Imagine the gravitational pull of a massive planetary body passing dangerously close to Earth. It would warp our magnetic field and pull at the oceans. Taking advantage of the impending natural disaster caused by this gravity, the leadership decided simply not to warn humanity. Polar ice sheets slipped, and titanic tidal waves swept across the continents. Every single ancient culture on Earth has a record of this exact event. We call it the Great Flood. But a few humans were saved. After the waters receded, civilization was handed back to us, starting in ancient Sumer. It makes you think, what if our most bizarre myths aren't just fantasy? What if they are the misunderstood historical memories of a species suffering from collective amnesia?